I say when the elders come knocking at my doors, I tell them, if you respect human rights, I will let you out. So this is Tyler, and he's surrounded by Jehovah Witness elders, and most Jehovah Witness elders are nice, but sometimes they want to encourage you to come back to Jehovah, and that means this fellowshipping. So hello, Tyler. Tell us your story.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, like you said, kind of surrounded by elders right now. So one thing that has been happening is I received a certified letter. A while back, I moved away from, I separated from my ex-wife, and I had a conversation with my youngest daughter, and I think that kind of prompted some action by the elders. I'd been faded for about a year and a half and just kind of minding my own business. And
you're still living in the same location, the same area?
Say again, I'm sorry?
You're living in the same area as you used to?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, when I moved now, where I initially separated from my wife, yes, I kept a residence right near her in the same town so that I could be there to help my kids and be there for them half time and help them with school and not have to disrupt that at all. And so in the course of that, I had a conversation with my youngest daughter, and that didn't go, I guess, maybe as well as I had hoped. And so I think that prompted the elders to look for me now. So a few weeks after that, I left there because my children basically indicated that they don't want to be around me anymore. And so, well, if they don't want to be there and I'm paying money for a 3-bedroom house for them every month that is an hour and a half away from my work, and my girlfriend lives 15 minutes from my work, well, let's make the logical choice here. And so I moved in with my girlfriend a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago. It's kind of slowly been happening over the last couple of months. But I gave my address to my ex-wife. Only person I gave my address to. About 6 days later, I received a certified letter at my new address from the old coordinator of the body of elders in my previous congregation, inviting me to, obviously, a judicial committee. So, and
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was very kind of them. And that is one thing that I will mention as well. Like I don't hold any animosity towards any elders in particular, or any Jehovah's Witnesses for that matter. It's the leadership, it's the upper management, I guess we would say, that I take issue with. And so I understand that these elders are just doing their job. They're men that I've considered friends for, a couple of them 25, 30 years. So, I've known a lot of them. I've known them for quite some time. And I get that they're just doing what they think is best, albeit misguided. But
yeah,
it is what it is. So, you kind of get over it after a while. But so anyway, I received this letter from them inviting me to the Judicial Committee and indicating that, be there or we're going to move ahead without you anyway. And so that's kind of where that ended up. It was supposed to happen while we were on vacation, actually. I was leaving for vacation the day after I received that certified letter. My girlfriend and I, we went out of state for about 10 days. And during that time, we had our next door neighbor was keeping an eye on our cats. And when we came back and I went to get the key from him, we were talking for a minute. And he said, somebody stopped by looking for you while you guys were gone. I said, well, that's odd. No one should have this address except my ex-wife. What is that all about? He said, well, it was a gentleman who identified himself as, I think he said he was a Jehovah's Witness. And I briefly talked with the neighbor, and he's familiar that my girlfriend, who is also an ex-JW, that we were raised in that environment. And he actually has a friend that we discovered a mutual friend of, who actually committed suicide in the JWs 2 years ago. So yeah, it's kind of a, I guess, small world, as they would say. But, he said this, this fellow identified himself as a JW and asked him if he knew Tyler Ahrens, asked him if he knew me. And started asking a bunch of incriminating questions. If he's ever done anything illegal with me, if he's ever, just kind of fishing.
Would you please like to admit some crime to a random person? You can trust me. I'm a Jehovah Witness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's just stupid. I don't. But I kind of laughed with him, and I said, "Well, that's funny. What did they say?" And he said they kept going, and they kept getting pushy to the point where he. I guess I'm not even going to repeat what he ended up having to say, but he essentially. He as much as threatened this fellow that he needed to not be on his property anymore, and that he was no longer welcome. So,
yeah, but it is. Sorry for interrupting, but it's typical Jehovah Witness. You believe that there's God, Jehovah, there's Satan, there's worldly people, and in this system, you're really, really important, and you're one of the most. I used to be one of the most important people in Norway, at least here locally. So you ask people questions, and you kind of think that they're kind of stupid because they're worldly after all, but they knock at people's door and ask, "Do you commit any crime?"
Yeah. And after I haven't talked to any of these men in a year and a half, I don't. They have nothing better to do.
Okay.
So it was funny. So we chatted a little bit, and he kind of told me a little bit more of the conversation. Admittedly, he's not this elder. Maybe him too. The neighbor, he's drunk quite a bit, so maybe his recollection wasn't as great as he. But it was the person that he described sounded a lot like one of the elders that was identified in the certified letter as being part of the judicial committee that I was supposed to attend. And again, this is while we were on vacation. And at that point in time, I hadn't actually responded to the certified letter at all. I had not made any sort of contact, because I was debating, like, okay, do I push it off for a couple of weeks? Do I attend it? Do I try, what do I do? And so finally I texted them the day before it was supposed to be. So we'd been on vacation for a week, and I said, "Hey, it's not going to work. I'm not going to be home. I'm on vacation." It was okay. So they pushed it back. But this visit that my neighbor had was before that. So it's also coincidentally on the same route that I know this elder that sounds a whole lot like him would have taken to get home from work. Seems about the right time, traveling home to his midweek meeting. So it all kind of seemed to line up. And
I would guess there were two elders, because when they ask for evidence, like incriminating stuff like that, they are trained to always be two. So even if the guy only remembered one of them, I'm pretty sure that there were someone else lurking behind a bush or something.
Right. Yeah. And actually, the way his front door is laid out, he very easily would have been able to be standing just around the corner in front of his garage door, 6 feet away, completely hidden. So a distinct possibility. But I can't confirm that. But
no,
we as much as know that that's the case. So, but So I decided that, well, that's crossing a line. I haven't even spoken to these men in a year and a half. The last conversation I had with this guy, who, again, I'm not specifically saying that he was the one harassing my neighbor, but it sounds like. He's the one that I texted that I was not going to be attending my judicial committee that I was supposed to have when I was still in, coming up on 2 years ago when I was fading. So that was when I started my fade. I was supposed to be going to a judicial committee, and I decided that day that, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. And these men don't hold any power over me, so let's let's not do that anymore. And so I talked to my wife about that, and everything just kind of just tanked downhill after that with my ex-wife, to the point where we've got these, now I've got elders chasing me. But it was over the line. Wasn't something that I was going to just take a step back and say, oh, well. So I called the coordinator of the old congregation, the chairman of the judicial committee, and I asked him, I said, hey, someone stopped here, wondering if that was you or who it was. And Oh, no, we don't know anything about that. Okay, well, so I called the next elder down the list on the committee. Nope, don't know anything about that. And I didn't get any answers from the other two numbers that I called. And then the second one started calling me back and wanting to, have you figured anything out yet? But they seemed very interested for supposedly not having been involved. They seemed very interested in finding, if I figured out who it was. But yeah, I decided that was crossing a line and told them that if that happens again, I'm essentially trying to figure out who is going to receive a restraining order, because if I've made it clear that I'm not wanting to be part of your religion and I haven't spoken to any of you in over a year and I didn't give you my forwarding address, so I don't know why you're here anyway, that's just, that's a little bit much. And again, especially where it's it's a matter of the letter saying that they're going to have this committee one way or another. Whether I show up or not, that committee meeting is going to occur, and they will, they'll just handle matters there. What did they say? Something along the lines of, we will consider the evidence and reach a decision. So
yeah, they said the same to me.
Yeah, they made sure to let me know in the letter that the sins that I was accused of were serious, and that if I were found guilty and unrepentant, that I would be subject to disfellowshipping. So I guess they already explained what's going to happen, but
yeah,
we knew that anyway.
Well, you look unrepentant. How long did it take to grow that thing?
I actually started growing it December 2019 when I started fading. So about coming up on 2 years ago. But to be fair, I kept it trimmed until about April last year. I probably kept it to about an inch or so, and then it's just, I don't know. I wanted to be a little bit rebellious, and I was, I'm not going to have a big long beard. I'll just, grow a little bit. And then, well, it's getting long up top too. It's tied back at the moment, but I've got long hair up top too, so I'm getting super rebellious now.
Yeah, talking about fading, you could kind of, you could just buy one of these hats and walk around, and people would not recognize you. They would think you were a Hasidic Jew or something.
Right. I actually braided this earlier, so that I put a little braid in the beard, but oh well. So no, that's been for a while.
So there's a question here. You don't want to be a witness. Why are you fighting the elders? Why didn't you just leave when you left? Good question.
Good question. Yeah, I will answer that. So to sincity.com, thank you for the question. At this point in time, I don't want to have the official stance of the organization and religion, and thus my family, namely my children and my mother. Those are the two that or three, that I'm most concerned with, still being able to at least have that loophole of being able to speak to me if they choose to. And, they know about, they know about me online. I've got my own podcast and YouTube channel that maybe we'll try to mention as well. So that's something that they've found. And so they know who I am, but I still want to be able to maintain some semblance of a relationship with them. And that's even part of why I was doing this, because I know that why I reached out to you for the opportunity to be on the channel doing this disassociation was because I know that the elders are going to move forward, and I know what's going to happen. I know the process. I'm familiar. So I wanted to get ahead of that in a way that my children, because I discovered this past week that actually my youngest daughter, who just turned 14, and her friend, who was also 14, and they're both, growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they actually watch our podcast and YouTube channel. I was very surprised. So, granted, my daughter was a little bit upset by something that she had heard and was calling me out on that, but I was surprised nonetheless that they even watched it. So, knowing that at least my daughter seems to be open-minded enough and she's willing to hear both sides of a situation, I want to state my story, because I know that what is going to be said from the platform or from the elders is not going to be accurate. I know it's going to be very skewed. So I want people to understand my story and why I'm doing things the way I am, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the question, you don't want to be a witness, that's yes, you don't want to. Fighting the elders, you're technically not fighting the elders.
No.
You're basically doing them a favor, because since I believe many of the elders mean well, and imagine trying to chase down people that don't want contact with them and harass them, because on one hand, you have, I think in English you say, between the devil and the big C, because on one side they have the circuit overseer, and he's not a nice guy to the elders. He's basically harassing the elders in many cases, and they have to kind of make sure there's no loose ends. They have to make sure that all witnesses fall in line, and with that stress, it's actually for them, it's kind of easy just to go through the books and kick people out, because as long as you're in the book, they will say, can we encourage him and maybe offer him a Bible study? So for them, it's easier just to clean the books and kick people out.
Right. Yep.
It's bureaucracy. So basically, you're not fighting the elders, because we're doing them a favor.
Yeah. I'm not throughout any of this. I guess I've never really put up a fuss over anything. I've not ever been. I mean, again, we've started a podcast channel and a YouTube channel. Finding Paradise, I guess, is the name of that. So maybe I should throw that. Hey, Becky, good work. Yeah. That's appreciated. Glad you're watching. So yes, Finding Paradise is the name of our podcast and YouTube channel. Maybe I'll try to comment a link on the video afterwards. After it's posted, I'll put something in here if anyone's watching. But yeah, check us out. That would be awesome. So, we've been somewhat vocal and haven't hidden what we're doing. And I was even very upfront with my children that I was seeing someone after, their mother and I had separate. Because I know, again, they're going to hear these things from the elders, and, oh, your dad's seeing a worldly girl now and all this. And, well, I just don't want my children to get the skewed story. But restraining order sounds like retaliation. Well, I get what you're saying. To me, it seemed as though it was sorry, I thought that was the same person.
Yeah.
When it crossed the line of actually harassing my neighbors, to where he pretty much had to threaten this person that he does not know, bothering him, a grown man in his own home, while he's sitting there trying to have dinner. That's the very definition of harassment. And so when they are breaking the law and crossing that line, I don't want to have bad relationships with my neighbors just because they got to wonder, well, who's going to knock on the door looking for Tyler this week? That's just isn't going to fly.
Yeah, it was. I have to. There it is. Thank you, Rachel. So I did the same. They came, and the funny thing, when they came looking for me, they come and they're stiff and they pretend. And witnesses always believe that they are smarter than anyone else. So people that were visiting me, they just look at them and saw they were witnessing. They come like this. Is Jonas here?
To be fair, we did too.
Yeah, but what they didn't do, they come like, and they're obviously elders. They're obviously here to kick me out, but they. If the truth really was God's one true religion, and, Armageddon's just around the corner, and my friends said, why didn't they try to preach to them? Like, hello, is Jonas here? Okay, he's not. Well, we're Jehovah Witness elders, and would you like a Bible study? It's really important that you take a stand for Jehovah, maybe this week, but instead it's like, is Jonas here? No, okay, goodbye. They don't introduce themselves even, because they're ashamed of what they're doing.
Yeah, and
it's a sad thing. They deep inside, they know this is wrong. That's why if you ask Jehovah Witnesses, do you shun family members? They say, even in court, no. Family relations continue like normal. If you're a Jehovah Witness watching this, I'm telling the truth. You tell people that family relations continue as normal, and that's not true.
No,
and that's because you're ashamed of what you're doing.
Yeah. And speaking of things like that, if again, if that's going to be your beliefs, and I've come to a point in my life where I feel, you need to respect people's right to believe whatever it is that they want. You have the right to believe whatever you want until it starts in the actions of that start infringing upon other people. But if it's going to be something like that, if it's going to be shunning, and that's Jehovah's way, if that's God's way, then own it.
Yeah.
Be proud about it. If letting children die because of refusing blood transfusions is God's way, then own it.
Yeah.
Stand up and say, yes, that is correct. Don't try to shrink back under other, articles that conflict and contradict each other, saying, oh, we have thousands of brave children that are dying for Jehovah every year, but then write a retraction later and say, oh, no, that doesn't happen, to cover your own butt later. So that's, own it if you're going to say something. And that's one thing.
So have you been called to Judicial yet?
Yes. So, well, yeah. And that's the certified letter that I received, that we were talking about a little bit. So yeah, I was supposed to have had one a week ago Saturday. So 10 days ago, something like that. I was going to be out of town, and then we're trying to, hey, Corey's a friend of mine that just commented.
Okay. She says, my mother and sister are both still in and refuse to speak to me. Definitely does not continue as normal. No, what they like to twist words. So they say, if you think that family relationship is your DNA, well, then you can say the family relationship continue as normal because the DNA is the same. But that is lying, because you... Thank you, truth seeker.
It might technically be true.
No, it's not
but
true.
it is incredibly intellectually dishonest at the very least.
Well, if you know that someone will misunderstand something, then it's a lie,
Right. Yes.
Like if you sell a product and basically just change the letter and to dyslexic person, it is a lie, because you're planning that he will this. And also when you go to court and witness in court, they, at least in Norway, they tell you that it's not enough to say the truth. You're not allowed to hold anything back or misrepresent anything.
Which is better than the U.S.
Yeah.
So you're actually allowed to, we have an amendment in our Constitution that allows you to say, I don't want to answer that question because it's going to make me look guilty. We actually have that in our Constitution.
Yeah, and that's basically every country have, because if you were it was necessary to answer questions, well, that's torture. You're not getting out of here before you answer a question. That's why Jesus, when he refused to answer a question, are you the king of the Jews, and he refused to answer, that's like, please execute me, because they did not have the right to remain silent. But everyone has the right to remain silent, and in at least in Scandinavia, you have the right to lie. If you're accused of a crime, so you come to the point that you're actually in court accused of a crime, you can tell any story. You can lie. You're not under oath. You're just allowed to blur out anything. But if you're a witness in a court case, you obviously have to tell the truth and everything. But the person that's accused of a crime has the right to lie as much as he wants. It's 100% legal.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah. I don't remember what we were talking about. So, the hiding things and making them look different as they were is kind of where we were at.
Yeah. Why really they own up to yeah. If it's the right thing not to take blood transfusion, then they should say, we don't take blood transfusion because it's the right thing. Yeah. It doesn't matter if there are other alternatives. It's a religious stand, not a medicine stand.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Well, and it's funny because it's in response to a question about food. Anyway, it's a dietary restriction from 2,000 years ago. Had nothing to do with medicine, especially medical procedures that didn't exist. So, oh well. But, so yeah, so I kind of wanted to get ahead of everything and just kind of do things on my own terms. And so knowing that at some point in time, my children will see this, and it sounds like one of them is watching it on her own, maybe on a regular basis. I'm not sure. I just wanted to be able to share, kind of my own side of the story. And for, my mother as well. I don't have any sort of animosity towards any of them. I want them to know that I love them deeply, and there's nothing that I really wouldn't do for them. But I did have to, a while back, I had to essentially cut my own mother off because she wouldn't respect boundaries just to show me basic decency when I was, she was wanting to take my children on vacation. And I said, you know what? I would allow that. I don't like where you're taking them. I don't like the people that you're going to visit, but it's okay. I would allow that because I don't want to hold them back from something. My personal differences with someone shouldn't hinder my children from being able to, enjoy time with their family. But she said she would ask my ex, and when I asked her later, my mom, she came back and said, well, I don't need your opinion about taking them. I thought, well, they're my children. So you kind of do. And I basically told her, I said, that's not going to fly. You can't talk to me like that, especially when you're trying to, take my kids on vacation. And if you can't respect just boundaries in that way, then I'm going to have to think about whether or not I will give you permission to take my children somewhere. Like, we need to have at least a mutual respect before I'm willing to allow you to take them, 900 miles away out of state. So and she just responded, okay, fine, I won't ask then. And all right, well, so I guess I told her, as well, then I guess please don't contact me anymore unless it's to have a normal relationship with your son, because the constant manipulation and coming back and changing things around is just, it's not healthy for anyone. So it's time to cut that loose. But even though I essentially had to cut my mother off, I would be there for her right now if she needed anything for me. So, that's, again, one of the things I've tried to stress, even in our own podcast and YouTube channel, that, again, there's no animosity towards individuals. It's a shame that everyone is, they're victims to this cult as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to, I don't have children of my own, but, I've seen it's important not to normalize shunning, When kids grow up with something, they think it's normal. I used to think that shunning is normal. So I know people that they go with the kids to the grandparents, and the grandparents refuse to talk to the parents and just pretend it doesn't exist. And I would say that's harmful for the children, because the children grow up with, this is a normal situation. This is the way it is. No, it's not normal.
Yeah, it's not at all. And that's one of the things that, even when, that's one of the things that the children begin to, that kind of helps them to wake up a lot of times, is it just kind of goes against their basic humanity, and it goes, well, that doesn't make sense. That's why, because before they're indoctrinated and taught these completely inappropriate things from a cult, that's not the way you believe. You only learn those things through indoctrination. Yeah. So, kids can a lot of times see through that. If the indoctrination doesn't set well, great. But I don't.
If I would use a scripture from the Bible to describe Jehovah Witnesses, it would be that they have no natural affection.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was a scripture about that, wasn't there?
Yeah. They have no natural affection.
Yeah.
Okay, so in case your family or your kids watch this, what's your 5 biggest reason for leaving the Jehovah Witness religion? Because you don't hate the witnesses, obviously.
No.
It's not like... I don't hate the Jehovah Witnesses, in case someone wonder,
Yeah.
I like them. They're nice people.
Mm-hmm. No, not at all. So top 5 reasons why I would want to leave being a witness. Well, let's say it is for my children that are watching, for them, because of them. It's something that I always had trouble making sense of, and I always figured things would click one day and it would all make sense because this is what my parents taught me, so it has to be the truth. And when it finally came to a point where things just, it doesn't click, because it doesn't make sense unless you can convince yourself. But I had gotten to a point where I valued honesty more than religion. And so I couldn't teach them something that I couldn't fully back up myself. So I could not be a hypocrite, and that is why I had to leave this religion. There was too much that I knew about it behind the scenes to say, yep, I can just turn a blind eye to that. And I could have even honestly walked away from the religion quietly had my ex-wife been able to just be decent, and I'd been able to keep my children and have a decent family relationship. But, you know, here we are. So yeah, number one would be for them. Number two would be to be able to help people on a much larger scale. That's one of the reasons why we started our own podcast and YouTube channel, so that we could reach out and we could help other people tell their stories as to why, you know, they've left. And keeping with the theme of our channel, you know, finding paradise, we were always told that you can't find, you know, it's going to be terrible if you leave. The world is just disgusting. It's going to chew you up and spit you out. And we find that it's quite the opposite. You know, when you leave the witnesses, you discover that there's a lot of beautiful people in the world, that really the world is a great place, and you don't have much to worry about there. But it allows you to kind of immerse yourself into that to make it a better place. If you want to actually, you know, change your world, then you need to get out into it. You need to actually make change and do better. So that's another reason I would say, to be able to help people to I guess a further degree. Hey, so number three, boy, man, I wish I don't have my list with me. I love, but no, just because, and again, because it doesn't make sense. It's more loving to actually love your family and to, you know, to have your family with you, as opposed to splitting them up. And I guess I would say, well, can move from that to number 4. Let's go with 3.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to think of more, you know, obviously there's a million reasons, but they all kind of boil down to a lot of the same things, that it just doesn't add up, that it doesn't ring true. And so authenticity is a little bit better way of doing things. I guess number 4, you can live your life the way you would like.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason for you to subject yourself to rules that these men have no place to put on you. Once you've learned that all of their teachings are rubbish, it kind of all falls apart. And then you realize, oh, I don't have to listen to these men. And again, it's not that I dislike the elders. I don't dislike the 3 elders that are supposed to be part of my judicial committee. I would have considered them friends. Yeah. But, you know, it kind of changes that that dynamic. But you don't have to listen to them once you realize this, that they don't have that power over you. And it doesn't mean that you cut them off as friends. One thing that I had kind of realized in waking up is that in your head, you kind of realize, oh, all of these Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, they are going to kind of toe the line, and they will probably shun you. That's probably what's going to happen. But for me, it seemed like the relationships that I had with ones that were, you know, the ones that I were more friends with, they kind of had to break those relationships one at a time. Like, I knew that the witnesses would shun me, but like, oh, well, this guy, he won't. But then when you talk to them and then they do, then you go, oh, and then it kind of disconnects. You know, you can shut it off as an organization, but then there are individual relationships that it seems you kind of have to address and you have to deal with. Anyway, so a little bit of a tangent there from not having to, you know, follow rules that don't apply to you anymore. But, and again, just, the authenticity of it will, I guess, as they say, the truth will set you free. And so you can actually enjoy freedom and breathe a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
for me, it's the same. Like, I discovered the religion wasn't true, and it was like, well, it wasn't the happiest day of my life, but you kind of get used to that. And I went to the meeting and everything basically because of my wife, and then it's just, I didn't leave because it wasn't true. But then you're starting to realize when it's not true, and you have to do this. You have to go in field service, even though it's not true. They're bullying you with this. You have to do this. You're supposed to answer. You have to go. It's a full-time job to be a member of this religion, basically. And then it gets more and more abusive when you start showing that I really don't want to be a ministerial servant, you know?
Yeah.
And it's more and more abusive.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically, we have that in common. It's not true. And I want to live my life the way I want. I'm not a bad person.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of started me on the path of waking up and realizing that it was silly is I was a ministerial servant, and I really did I dove in head first. Like, I tried to really make the truth my own. Like, I really wanted to kind of accept all of it. I wanted it to make sense and understand it. And so I was a ministerial servant. I gave the public talks and everything, and I ended up at a point where I had another, I guess I won't identify them from here, but I had somebody else in the congregation that had targeted me and others for no real reason. They initially said that they were going to get us disfellowshipped because they had personal issues with us. And I thought that was kind of ugly behavior. I didn't think that was very nice. But they followed through on that, and they put together a list of massive claims and accusations against myself and this other brother. And I ended up in front of four different elders because of four different charges or accusations. And two of them were absolutely nonsense, and the other two just weren't any of their business. So, it kind of got to the point I was like, why am I doing this? It's not right. So I don't have to follow their rules. And that was just kind of the beginning of that thought process that they could be wrong, I guess.
So I just a funny story. When we were PMOs, and my ex-wife, she was a believer, but so she was a believer, I was a PMO, but you're living under the constant scrutiny from the elders. So even if you want to do something that you're allowed to do, like go out dancing, you need an excuse, an explanation, and you get used to it when you've been in the culture for a long time. But there were other people around here, and well, the situation was this, that we want to go out dancing, and my poor ex, she was sick, so she had to stay home. So I went out in public, and obviously my ex was okay with that, with her friend, and we went out dancing. Nothing wrong about that.
Yeah, innocent.
Then she instructed her, in case someone asks, we have to say this, in case, because Jehovah Witness fall around. And this worldly friend of my wife, she said, I'm glad I'm not a Jehovah Witness, because I could never live with this constant lying. And for me, it's like, yeah, that's what it is. It's just you're so used to always being controlled and afraid, someone might stumble. So you always have to rub everything into cotton and to make it look nice and neat packages all the time. But this worldly person, she just blurred out like it was.
Yeah.
I'm not used to lying all the time.
Yep.
I'm a grown man, and my wife wanted to stay home, and it was like this local festival, and went out dancing a few hours, in public.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But as a witness, you have to kind of wrap it in and make this story around it to make it sound
right, even
better than innocent.
You should have told them that you were trying to start a study with her, and it would have been okay.
would probably not have worked. I just
Yeah.
realized, because I got my paper from Watchtower, what they have their file on me. And obviously they are not telling the truth. But then it says, for 2 years, I only reported 15 hours or something like that. So someone in the organization, the elders or someone, I don't know who, must have destroyed my report. Because I was reporting like above average. I think one of the last month I reported 40 hours. Even
That's
though
better than I did.
for a decade. Yeah, because I used to be a pioneer, so I know all the loopholes how to count hours. And basically, as soon as you talk about the organization with someone, you can claim it as hours. And since I speak a lot about all the crazy stuff happening in the organization, that's just telling the truth about the truth. So I basically reported my activism, but
well, and I believe
someone
now
have removed my report because I guess it didn't fit their narrative that the local guy that don't go to the meeting, don't shave, don't reaching out for privilege is reporting 40 hours a month, even though he does have 0 meeting attendance. So I think they just ripped my report apart. So it would fit the narrative that I was the bad guy, something like that.
Well, and now they're doing a live action Jesus series that they want to do now, that they announced. So they're actually going to do like I guess like an episodic live action Jesus series, and they're encouraging witnesses from all over to audition. And as I understand, that is being accepted as a form of service. So I think you're allowed to audition and be in this live action Jesus series, and that counts as you can count time for that, from what I understand.
So in the good old days, when we were still waiting for Armageddon, I was a pioneer. And so if I was working on a project like that and I had an official invitation, so it was in writing, then I could count all the hours I needed to reach 90. So if I did 10 hours in normal field service and 500 hours on construction, I could take 80 hours from the construction. So it would never be above 90.
Yeah, you could use those hours, but not to get ahead.
Now.
Yeah, you could use those hours, but not to actually get ahead. You could use them to, stay afloat, basically.
Yeah.
If they work you have to death, they'll let you.
We were supposed to do 90 every month, but that was a 7-hour surplus. So you will get a vacation in August. It's called the Pioneer Vacation in August.
Yeah. Well, and before that, I think before they said that you could use 10 and 80, I think for a while they were saying you could get like half of your time. I think at least in the US, I think for a time they said you can use half of your time if you need it to make up. It's like, well, if you're working people half to death, you should at least allow them to count their time. So, but
well, I think it's a man-made organization with man-made rules. Pretty sure of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So,
so what are you going to do with your life now?
So, we mentioned it a couple of times. We have, trying to get involved in more activism. So that's great. If anyone that knows me is watching, post in the comments, post the link to the podcast or something. No, trying to get into more activism. I've since gone back to school. I'm getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling right now. In about around 2 years, I will hopefully be a licensed therapist, and planning on working specifically with, as much as possible, with ex-members of cults and religious trauma. So specifically JWs as needed. It's a little bit of a niche, so it'll be on the side a little bit, but that's kind of where trying to go with that.
Well, it's obviously a market for it because, like everyone say, that if you leave a cult, it's really difficult to get a good therapist. And I heard he went from one therapist to another, and the therapist is sitting taking note. Oh, this is crazy. And you have to pay money to educate him. And then they don't really know. So one guy, he was sitting there and had to educate the therapist about this. And then he looked through his note and said, well, it seems like you were happy when you were in the cult. Why don't you go back?
Yeah, no. That was one of the things that I found as well. And it kind of, again, that's why I decided to go into the field. Because after I left, I needed therapy. And I would kind of recommend that to anyone. If you are an XJW and you haven't, even if you think you don't, the first session's free. Go talk to a therapist. They'll give you a free session and maybe you'll find something that you need to talk about. But there definitely is a lot of trauma left behind from this. And yeah, you don't want to go and pay $150 an hour to educate your therapist. They've already gone to school, so they should be able to help you. So that would be the other recommendation. There is Cracking the Cult Code by Bonnie Zeman. If you're looking for a therapist, you're an XJW and you can't find one that understands, suggest one of them to read that book or familiarize themselves. Maybe that'll give them a leg up, and you won't have to spend the first half a dozen sessions half the time explaining yourself.
I think, okay, I'm not a therapist, but I think if you tell them, just pretend the cult is an abusive relationship. Yeah. Then it, because that's what it is. It is an abusive relationship. They make you feel like shit. They will make you feel bad because then you're easy to control. If you see cult members, they are always like, I love the cult, I'm the happiest person, and they say the cult made me a better person. Or Pentecostals, they will say like, Jesus saved me from me, I am bad but my favorite is good. And if you see at abusive relationship, women that go they're always like, I love the psychopath, he's the best thing that happened to me. Yeah, because you see that with women in abusive relationship, they always like, it's the best thing that happened to me, and then it goes, he was the worst thing that happened to me. And the same with cult members. When you're a cult member, you go, it's the best thing, and then it's the worst thing. So I think it's quite easy to say to a psychologist that just to save money, imagine Watchtower is an abusive husband and go from there, and you get a bargain, I think. Yeah.
Get it out there a little bit quicker. Yeah, if you don't have someone that's understands cult trauma and that, do it that way. It's the quickest way to illustrate it. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's definitely beneficial, and especially for, I will even say, for men leaving the cult. Traditionally, men have been kind of overlooked in the mental health world. We get a lot of benefits other places, and we're kind of, but when it comes to mental health, we do get the short end of the stick a little bit. So
you're man up.
Yeah, exactly.
Take a double whiskey and man up.
I mean, I support that idea at least, but the whiskey part, not the man up.
Yeah.
But I even received as much as my mother saying the same thing, that just deal with it. Why do you got to go and talk about it online? Because I needed support. So. I
have to
whatever happens, find some support somewhere is kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, it's I speak to the witnesses at conventions, and they don't understand because we're nice people. They, it doesn't fit their brain that, you see my signs behind me, European Convention of Human Rights, and we're just nice to everyone. And so they say, you want to come back? And I say, no, thank you.
No, I'm good.
And then the other thing they say, if you want to leave, just leave. Why should you I have to witness about the truth. It's so fun to talk to witnesses when you're publicly declaring you're an apostate, and for them nothing makes sense.
Yeah. And I got to say, talk about, talking to witnesses at conventions and things like that, and your activism and protesting work and everything. Just a quick, plug of even your channel. When I first was waking up, I would say your video from the Melbourne convention, when the Jehovah's Witness came and said, tried to reach common ground and bought coffee for all the apostates there, and then was kicked out. That was one of the very first videos that I watched when I was waking up. So thank you for that. That's always kind of stood out.
Welcome. Maybe the coffee dub is watching, so I feel sorry for him.
Hopefully he's awake
It was
now.
such a shitty thing because it was just nice, and then this attendant, like boss of the attendants, young, probably an elder, but like, I'm in charge and this is important. And we got the feeling that he had a very inflated ego. He gave that vibe, and this poor guy was not letting back into the convention. And that's like, what? Shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you abandon the 99 sheep to go to find the extra sheep? You know, this guy wasn't even lost. He just bought coffee to people.
Yeah.
Which
he was
is
just being friendly.
And Christian. That's what you're supposed to do. Turn your other cheek, you know, be nice. He did exactly what the Jehovah Witness was supposed to do. Even if we would be standing there with swastikas, you know.
Yeah.
He did the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and shortly after I left as well, you know, it was pretty well known that I was.
I'm just saying, we're talking about the guy who gave us coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
He was not allowed to go back to the convention. He gave us coffee, the apostates, and he didn't really talk with us. He just say, you know, this is what Jesus would do. We can do. And then when he wanted to come in, they took his name and everything, but he was refused to go into the convention.
Yeah. I always wondered if he was Pimo, maybe.
No, he wasn't Pimo.
No?
I think he was. But it's not the first time witnesses come and are nice to us. Like one came and bought water for us, and they say they were sitting in the convention, say, what would Jesus do with those apostates? I said, well, and then they come and give us coffee and water, something. It happens quite often.
Oh, fair enough. Good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they don't act Christian, like you said. It's kind of the way. And God, what was there? That brought up a point. There was something that I thought of a moment ago, and now it's gone. But it's, you know, who knows? Hopefully, maybe someday we'll protest at a convention somewhere together. That'll be fun if they ever do them live again.
That will be fun. The reason why I asked what you're going to do now is because witnesses always believe that we leave because we want to sin. We want to do something disgusting.
Yeah.
So, is there anything disgusting you're planning to do?
I don't think any of the things that I mentioned that I want to do with my life, I think they were all fairly positive things. I think they were all good things. I think I'll be all right. That's kind of one of the things that I've tried to do is just focus on the positives and being a good person. And especially situation, you know, with my children, I get it. That's the only thing that they've ever known. So I understand them and their viewpoint on me. So I don't want them to think that I have any animosity towards them. I love my children more than anything. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for them. But oh shit. Sorry, so I'm just
yeah.
A comment there. I lost my train of thought then.
Yeah, that's a good sign that we need to wrap it off. So,
we probably should.
Yeah, it's late here in Norway, so we have to do the professional announcement here. How do you pronounce your second name?
Ahren's.
Ahren.
It was German, so it's technically Arns, but
Arns
with the Americanization, I guess, of it, we call it Ahren's.
Ahren's. Okay, so then we'll make the Tyler Ahrens is no longer one of Jehovah Witnesses. So, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for the super chats, and see you in paradise.
Thank you.